Have you ever driven past a massive power plant or a sprawling oil refinery and just wondered, how in the world does something like that even get built? Well, these mega projects don't just happen. They rely on a very specific framework to go from an idea on paper to a fully operational reality. Today, we're diving deep into that framework, EPC projects.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to break down exactly what an EPC project is. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the contracts that hold these massive deals together. After that, we'll walk through the entire process, step by step. We'll even look at a major real-world challenge they face on site. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at the huge advantages of using this model.
So let's get right into it. What exactly is this powerful three-letter acronym that underpins so much of our modern industrial world?
I mean, think about it for a second. If you've got the money and the land, how do you actually coordinate the thousands upon thousands of steps it takes to build a power plant? You need architects, armies of engineers, suppliers for every single nut and bolt, and of course, a massive construction crew. The complexity is absolutely staggering.
And that's where the EPC model comes in. It stands for engineering, procurement, and construction. The big idea here is that the project owner hires one single expert contractor to handle, well, everything. It's a total, comprehensive solution that brings the entire project under one roof.
Let's break down those letters because they tell the whole story. The E is for engineering. This is the brains of the operation, creating every single detailed blueprint and technical plan. Then you have P for procurement. This is all the logistics, sourcing everything from giant turbines down to specialized software and subcontractors. And finally, C is for construction, the brawn, the crew on the ground managing the physical build. The EPC contractor is in charge of it all.
Now, this all leads to a really crucial concept called turnkey. This means the contractor hands over the keys to a facility that's literally ready to start operating that same day. But here's the most important part, the transfer of risk. If the project goes over budget or if there are delays, that's on the contractor, not the owner. It's a huge amount of responsibility, and it's a calculated risk they're paid a premium to take on.
Okay, so with that level of responsibility and risk on the line, you can bet there has to be an incredibly detailed agreement in place. Let's dig into the contract and see how this all gets put down on paper.
And this really gives you a sense of the scale we're talking about. This isn't just a few pages of paperwork. We're talking about documents so massive, so detailed, that they can fill up several of these giant binders. Every single possibility, every detail has to be spelled out.
So what's actually in all those binders? Well, you've got the scope of work, which defines exactly what's being built. You have a rigid project schedule with firm milestones and deadlines. There's a fixed price, usually paid out as those milestones are hit. Of course, all the construction documents, the blueprints, and, critically, performance guarantees, which ensure the finished plant actually works the way it's supposed to, plus all the insurance and risk management details.
All right, the contract is signed, the ink is dry. The project can finally begin. So let's look at the step-by-step process of turning that mountain of paper into a real, functioning facility.
It all flows in a pretty logical sequence. You start with feasibility studies and initial planning. Can this even be done? Then you move into the super detailed engineering and design phase. Once those plans are locked in, the procurement team kicks into high gear, ordering materials and hiring crews. Then the real action begins, on-site construction and assembly. And finally, you have the commissioning phase, where everything is tested and double-checked before that final turnkey handover.
Now, that process sounds really clean and linear on a slide, doesn't it? But, the real world is messy. On a massive construction site, EPC contractors have to manage some incredibly serious hazards to keep everyone safe.
And this table really shows you the scope of the problem. We're talking about hazardous dust, like silica from cutting concrete, stuff that can cause serious, permanent lung disease. You've got chemical vapors from paints and welding fumes, and there are even biological risks, like mold growing in stagnant water. Managing these dangers is non-negotiable. Failure can lead to worker injuries, project shutdowns, and just massive environmental fines.
So how do they deal with all this? They use something called collective protective equipment, or CPE. Now this goes way beyond personal gear like a hard hat or goggles. We're talking about large-scale systems, like massive industrial ventilation units to pull dust and vapors out of the air. We're talking about physical barriers to completely seal off contaminated zones. It's all about a strict top-down culture of safety that protects the entire site, not just one person.
Managing all of that complexity, all of that risk, it is tough stuff. So it kind of makes you wonder, why would an owner ever choose this model? Let's get to the core benefit of going with an EPC contract.
And this right here is the key takeaway. Look at the owner's side. Their responsibilities are basically to define the project, get the financing, and make payments on time. That's pretty much it. The EPC contractor handles everything else: the design, the logistics, and most importantly, they take on the risk of cost overruns, delays, and any performance issues. For the owner, this provides cost and schedule certainty, and in the world of mega projects, that is incredibly valuable.
This quote just sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? The owner gets a finished product ready to go without having to manage the day-to-day chaos of a massive construction project. It's that peace of mind they're really paying for, and the contractor accepts all that risk in exchange for that fixed-price contract.
So, it leaves us with a final, pretty big thought. As we face global challenges that demand bigger, more complex energy and infrastructure projects, is this single point of responsibility model becoming the default blueprint for the future of how we build? It's a really compelling question to think about.